I'd like to introduce now our first hymn. I'm not sure whether the words will appear on the screen, but in number 61 in the purple book, and Aaron will play the tune for us. My secondary theme, if you can call it that, is peace, and read one or two poems which relate to that subject. First of all, a poem written after the Second World War by Henry Reed. This piece, rather almost satirically or mischievously, lessons of war, of the war indeed. And he called this first poem Naming of Parts, and the parts he's referring to are the parts of a gun or a rifle. Today we have naming of parts. Yesterday we had daily cleaning, and tomorrow morning we shall have what to do after firing. But today we have naming of parts. Japonica glistens like coral in all of the neighbouring gardens, and today we have naming of parts. This is the lower sling swivel, and this is the upper sling swivel, whose use you will see when you are given your slings. And this is the piling swivel, which in your case you have not got. The branches hold in the gardens their silent, eloquent, which in our case we have not got. This is the safety catch with an easy flick of the thumb. And please do not let me see anyone using his finger. You could do it quite easy if you have any strength in your thumb. The blossoms are fragile and motionless, never letting anyone see any of them. And this, you can see, is the boat. The purpose of this is to open the breech, as you see. We can slide it rapidly backwards and forwards. We call this easing the spring. And rapidly backwards and forwards, the early bees and the flowers. They called it easing the spring. They call it easing the spring. It is perfectly easy if you have any strength in your thumb, like the bolt and the breech and the cocking piece and the point of balance, which in our case we have not got, and the almond blossom silent in all of the gardens, and the bees going backwards and forwards. For today we have naming of parts. I'd just like to remind you of some well-known words in another poem by the Lancaster poet Lawrence Binyon, though he didn't go to a school I taught at. It's the famous poem For the Fallen, which contains the remembrance day, they shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. They mingle not with their laughing comrades again. They sit no more at familiar tables at home. They have no lot in our labour of the daytime. They sleep beyond England's foam. But where our desires are and our hopes profound, felt as a wellspring that is hidden from sight, to the innermost heart of their own land they are known, as the stars are known to the night. Wilfred Owen, who was shot by a sniper in the last days of the First World War, called that kind of thinking the old lie. And he wrote a piece from experience of being gassed in the trenches. Excuse me. Bent double, like old beggars under sacks, knock-kneed, coughing like hags, we cursed through sludge, till on the haunting flares we turned our backs, and towards our distant rest began to trudge. Men marched asleep. Many had lost their boots, but limped on, bloodshot. All went lame, all blind, drunk with fatigue, deaf even to the hoots of Gatley behind. Gas, gas, quick boys! An ecstasy, a fumbling, fitting the clumsy helmet just in time. But someone still was yelling out and stumbling and floundering like a man in fire or lime. Dim through the misty panes and thick green light, as under a green sea, I saw him drowning. In all my dreams, before my helpless sight, he plunges at me, guttering, choking, drowning. If in some smothering dreams you too could pace behind the wagon that we flung him in, and watch the white eyes writhing in his face, his hanging face like a devil sick of sin. If you could hear at every jolt the blood come gargling from the frost-corrupted lungs, bitter as the cud of vile, incurable sores on innocent tongue, my friend, you would not tell with such high zest to children, ardent for some desperate glory, the old lie, dulce et decorum est pro patria mori, which being translated means it is a sweet and proper thing to do, to die for your country. I'd like to offer you something now which I wrote myself some years ago in response to a famous statement, famous among Unitarians anyway, by the 19th century Unitarian philosopher and thinker, James Martineau. He said, "The incarnation is true not of Christ exclusive, man universally, and God everlastingly. He bends into the human to dwell there, and humanity is the susceptible organ of the divine." Inspired by that kind of understanding of the old tradition of the Trinity and the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost and all that, and thought I would put it to the test in some lines that I wrote myself. We celebrate the universal incarnation. The Indian boy wiping shoes clean in the streets of Delhi. The stooped old bag lady traipsing through London. The pilot flying the 747 or whatever it is now. The caring knife. The Korean drummer making parchment speak. The celibate priest who has fathered a child, the stand-up comedian in the gay pub, the sadhu with matted hair on the banks of the Ganges, the poet who startles us with his sparky thrusts, the cat that dozes on the garden wall in the sun, the dog into my face, the drug addict, child molester, murderer, the drunk driver, ugly people, deformed divinities. The mothers and fathers who can let go of their children, girls who yearn to be women, my lover whom I worship and trust, charismatic teachers who inspire their pupils, nurses who enrich the lives of their patients, the beautiful women and men who turn our eyes in a crowd. May we always be susceptible of divinity. It's always seemed to me that our responsibility for our own lives, and necessarily for the lives of our brothers and sisters throughout the world, lays upon us all a duty which cannot be dodged. Our humanity is defined by how we serve and care for the needs of the human family. You can't have faith without works. And working for the good of all inspires our faith in God-given life. Comfort to me to be told that God died for my sins. Actually, it wasn't God anyway. It was Jesus, the rabbi heretic of Nazareth 2,000 years ago, who was crucified. I see every one of us missing the mark in our lives. And whenever a fellow creature is harmed, pray for forgiveness for ourselves. We are all culpable. But if we are to serve human progress, we have to say sorry from the bottom of our hearts and move on. When we look around, we tend to focus on what's going wrong. Suffering, often caused by human ignorance, waste, devastation, degradation, the whole sorry spectacle of man's inhumanity to man. I see this as a betrayal of our God-given humanity, a trivialization of our God-endowed divinity. Resorting to armaments and the inflexible war talk of politicians, shouting at those we don't agree with and throwing our weight about if we don't get our own way, I want to say, come off it. Who do you think you are? There is that of God in every person, in every creature on the planet. Let's join together now in singing the words of the second hymn, which I've chosen, which is number 32 in the Purple Book. Earth was given as a garden. The words are by, I think she's American, but I don't actually know who Roberta Bard is. But anyway, the tune is a good old Welsh tune, Hyfrydol. I'd like to invite us all now to join in a short time of meditation, and I'd like to introduce this period of silence and quiet reflection with some words by the who people always think of as a novelist, but was in fact a poet, an essay writer, and lots of other things, the novelist D.H. Lawrence, the most famous novelist of the 20th century, possibly. to me anyway. And he wrote a little piece entitled Pax, which is, of course, the Latin for peace. All that matters is to be at one with the living God. To be a creature in the house of the God of life. Like a cat asleep on a chair, at peace, in peace, and at one with the master of the house, with the mistress, at home, in the house of the living, and yawning before the fire, sleeping on the hearth of life of the living world, yawning at home before the fire of life, feeling the presence of the living God. Like a great assurance, a deep calm in the heart, a presence as of the Master sitting at the board in his own and greater being in the house of life. Amen. Thank you, Aaron. We come now to that time in our service when we invite members of the congregation who are here, or indeed online, though that might be difficult today because of my technological incompetence. But it's the time of lighting the candles of joy and concern, or sometimes sorrow, as we describe it. So I'll light a candle for us all, as you might say. If anybody else would like to come forward, please do.
A candle each for my nephew and niece who have caught COVID. May I wish them a speedy recovery.
For all those everywhere, worldwide, who for whatever reason find themselves unable to find a home that they call their own, or for flood, or they are sick, or they're homeless genuinely, or just lost. Those of us who are more fortunate to be able to have somewhere that we call home, even if it's only a small cushion for a cat, I wish them all well.
Thank you. At some point near the end of the service now, we usually have notices. If anybody has a swaffer here and now, by all means come forward to the microphone and announce it. But I'm afraid I won't be able to access messages on our chat line or on a chat box. But the details of Reverend Cody Coyne's pastoral care on the board, or that's the social might happen online. A bit want to contribute financially to Cross Street Chapel. That's the email address at the bottom of the screen. Do we have any notice? No. It's lovely to be here, I must say. And lovely to see you too. You all too. I'd like to sing, like us all to join in spirit, if not in voice, our third and last hymn, which is number 87 in the Purple Book, it many years ago to a Unitarian music weekend that was held at the Harris Manchester College, Oxford. The weekend usually began with an organ recital, because in those days there were lots of organists around, and it ended with a service on the last morning, for which I wrote these words, which are in the book, and it's possibly slightly mischievous of me, but I wanted to make a statement about moving on, if you like. Leave behind your bags and baggage. Throw all caution to the air. Let the wind blow through the cobwebs. Cast aside all anxious care. Let the God of all our mercies breathe around you everywhere. In the name of us all, let there be peace and love among us. May the skies be clear. May the streets be safe. In the name of us all, let there be peace.